Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. I am Richard Dugan, and it is a great opportunity to have you back with us here to talk about new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And today we have a returning guest. It's been a while since we've had Zen on the program. I want to thank you for coming back and being with us. And it's Zen, I believe it's Cryar DeBrucke. Am I correct? Have I have got that all correct?
Yes, you do.
It's nice to have you back here. I think the last time we were together, we talked about one of your websites, one of the focuses having to do with Fear-Free Human, the human mission, the Fear-Free Human mission. I want to give out the website before we go too much further here because it's an important website for folks to take a look at because there are a lot of people that are in fear these days for a lot of different reasons, Be Fear freenow.com is the website. We'll talk about that as well. Tell us, since the last time we talked, I mean, it's been years, a lot has happened on a lot of different levels. First of all, what part of the country are you in?
I am in northern Idaho, Sandpoint, Idaho, about
Oh,
70 miles from the Canadian border in this beautiful little sleepy town that's just wonderful.
do they refer to that as a panhandle at all?
Yes, they
They do.
do.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
Well, I've been to Idaho. I was in Idaho when I turned 21. A matter of fact, I was on a plane flying to Idaho on the 26th. Actually, no, I take that back. It was on the summer solstice prior to my birthday. And I remember it was 9 o'clock in the evening. I was there with my buddy, and the sun was still up. And I said, "Does it ever get dark here?" Because I was getting kind of
Yes,
tired. Yeah,
it does. It stays light until almost 10 o'clock
yeah.
during the summer, and then it'll
Oh,
get dark at 4:30 in the evening in winter. So it's quite a place to live.
yeah, it's almost is almost close to what it would be like at the poles, where you've got 6 months of dark, and then you've
Yeah,
got
not
six
quite, but
months of
yeah.
sort of kind of light. You know, the sun might peek up over and then go back down again. It's really amazing. Oh, speaking of which, the poles, according to science, apparently they have, if they haven't begun to shift, they have shifted. The pole isn't where it was. The magnetic north,
Really?
I guess you should say. I should say, yeah. And
When did that happen?
it's been shifting for
I
years,
know, but
and
was there something like recently that was a real,
no, my wife keeps track of that. She's the one that keeps track of all that stuff. It's like when there's like the fires down in Los Angeles, which were horrific, and my heart goes out to those folks. I live here in Santa Barbara, and we've had over the last 18 and a half years, almost 19 years that we've lived here, we have dealt with 16 or 17 fires. And thankfully,
Yeah.
we've only been evacuated, believe it or not, once. And still no
Yeah.
harm came to where we live. Um, but when I look at the events of the world, it's not that I'm discompassionate. Why I don't like to watch the news, because man's inhumanity to man has been going on since, shall we say, Cain and Abel. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, and why do I need to fill my head with that stuff? I know this is going on. It's not that I don't
Right.
care, it's that I am aware.
Yeah.
And people, they fill themselves through social media and all of the other forms with all this stuff that generates this fear. And yet you've
Well,
been go ahead, please.
yeah, no, fear comes in between the ages of 0 and 7. Fear gets programmed into us. So, and then our response to fearful things is what we live with for the rest of our lives unless we do something to reprogram it, to disconnect it. So if you had fearful parents or they had particular fears, like let's say your parents were always fearful about finances or their health or what the neighbors thought, right? Then we have a tendency as children to pick those fears up. So if you had fear-free parents who were very courageous in their life and went out, then you're going to have less fear than other people. And it's very interesting, especially nowadays, because our younger people, one of the number one things that are happening is anxiety is overtaking people that were born after the year 2000. And a lot of it is because of the fear that has been instilled in people through media.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents, if they were fearful, they hid it really well. However, my belief is, and you can enlighten me on this, if you are a person who is fear-based, you can't hide that. People around you will pick it up, right? It's
Absolutely.
almost
And it shows up in
palpable.
a lot of ways.
Hmm.
Absolutely. It shows up in a lot of different ways, and people can feel it for sure. We can, it's contagious.
My parents obviously were not fearful people. Certainly, they were concerned about the six kids' health and welfare. Would certainly get upset if we crossed the line, and I did a number of times. I would jump on my bicycle at the age of 11 or 12, and I was 5 or 10 miles away from home. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, guess who shows up in the car? Not looking for us, just out running errands. My mother. So we didn't see her. So when we get home and she gets home, we get an earful. What were you,
Yeah.
So it was a genuine, it was a concern, but it wasn't a fear. As a matter of fact,
Well,
go ahead.
let's talk a little bit about, I've defined fear in a very different way
Okay.
over the years. I've gotten the opportunity to work with 40,000 people, and fear is at the base of all of our like stress, anxiety, overwhelm, frustration, irritation. So for instance, frustration is actually the fear of a situation never changing. So it doesn't show up like that. Ah, I'm terrified. It shows up more in the way of an experience of being like, oh, this isn't going to change. Irritation's always with a person and the fear that that person won't change. Procrastination is always that tight sensation because we're talking about the internal guidance system, which
Hmm.
is the tool that is used to become fear free. That internal guidance system, when it tightens down, procrastination is closing. Procrastination is that tight, tense feeling inside of you're not getting enough done. And it's the fear of getting behind. It's the fear of not being able to accomplish the things that you want to in life. But procrastination really is actually a signal, because it's all guidance,
Hmm.
that either it doesn't need to be done, it doesn't need to be done by you, it's the timing isn't right, or you're making it too complex. And so what
Mm.
I've been able to do is take all of the various fear themes that we have, impatience, the fear of not having enough time to do the thing that you want to do, that something's pulling you out of that. So there's an impatience for time. And so I've actually taken all these different types of fear and then brought them into solutions of how to release them. And when you find the thought, the center of the body releases and a new neural pathway, that pathway is now fear-free, begins to form. And so
Mm.
we can actually program our minds as individuals completely out of the fear experience. And that is the purpose of the fear-free human movement. Because think about how the world would be if we didn't have fear as humans. Fear of lack, fear of not having enough, right? Greed is actually a form of fear of
Mm-hmm.
not having enough,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's all of these symptoms that we have out there that are causing most of the world's problems. And we have an internal guidance system inside of us that is expanding and contracting and letting us know when we're in a form of fear in our thinking. And that is what we now have the capacity to change. As I've decoded the internal guidance system, you can use it to actually shift all of the levels of fear that you have mentally in your life as you move through your day and encounter them.
Mm. Zen Cryar DeBrucke is my guest. We're talking about the fear-free human mission. We're also talking about our website, BeFearFreeNow.com. We hope you will learn how to do that, and hopefully through this program and her website, that you will learn how to do that as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. The internal guidance system, there is a certain element of trademark there, and we certainly hope that people will find out more about it. And we're going to find out more about it right now with Zen Cryar DeBrucke, with Zen Cryar DeBrucke and her mission having to do with fear-free human, breaking free from fear, anxiety, and overwhelm. Um, you began talking about this internal guidance system. Now, we promote on a regular basis on this program asking people to take time during, it started out with the first year, 2020, the year of perfect vision, and then the decade, the 2020s, the year of perfect vision, asking people to spend some time going within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listening to the still small voice. What is the similarity or difference between what I'm talking about and your internal guidance system?
I love that question. So the internal guidance system will not produce the small voice. Okay. It will quiet your mental experience to where you can hear it. And by I'm imagining that what you're talking about is an external divine essence that's giving us wisdom and discernment and information on a regular basis if we quiet ourselves enough to pay attention to it, right? That's what we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
good.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening with the internal guidance system, it literally is giving you a tight or a relaxed sensation in the center of your body. It shows up as a lump in your throat, a tightness in your chest, or a sick kind of rock feeling in the solar
Oh.
plexus. And so it's a physical sensation. And as you're going about your day and you're thinking your normal thoughts, when you feel a tight sensation in any of those three areas, that means that what you're thinking in the moment is a fear-based thought that's out of alignment. It's not true or not going to happen. We just say that thought's not true or not going to happen. And then the practice is to drop into your listening, which is dropping within,
Mm-hmm.
and you start playing with different types of thinking. Now, like I was talking about earlier, with frustration, it's always about a situation not changing. So then you would ask yourself, what is it about this situation I believe will never change? I don't believe I'm ever going to be able to get ahead and have enough money to be able to have an actual savings account. And you'll feel that, yeah, yeah, right. I know it's a big one. You'll feel that tight sensation. That means that that's not true.
Hmm.
And so then there is a way. There is a way that this is going to happen. And you'll start feeling that relaxed sensation. This is not just about positive thinking, because if it's an unpleasant thing, I've opened when my brother disappeared and I opened that I wasn't going to see him again. And did die of dehydration and lost in the mountains.
Hmm.
I opened that I had cancer, breast cancer, when I felt the lump. I was like, this is cancer. And I opened. So this isn't about positive or negative thinking.
Mhm.
You're attached to what's happening is the sensations themselves are actually tapping into a wisdom, a divinity, a truth that is a part of each and every one of us as a human. And the guidance and the expansion and contraction is helping you because our thoughts create our reality. It's helping you cultivate your thoughts to what I call being in alignment with your perfect life's blueprint. And so I have found that, and I believe it's true because it opens me, but people will have to search that themselves, that we come down here and we have a purpose. We have a designed purpose for this life that we're living. And then we come here and we have all of these different things put upon us by various peoples, our culture, the way we react to things. And then we go and we try to accomplish this beautiful purpose in our blueprint, and we get off track. Oh, you can't be a musician. They don't make any money. You need to be a mechanic, right? And you're like, but I
Hmm.
want to be a musician. And you get pushed off of your
Mhm.
blueprint.
Mhm.
Well, this internal guidance system, we were all born with it, and its goal is to keep us through the expansion of our bodies, which looks like desire and our dreams and the things we're yearning for. That expansion is pulling us back to our blueprint. So once you learn how, and are trained in how to do this, as you're moving through your day and you get a tightening for a thought from a thought, you learn to recalibrate that thought. You release that fear, and the opening puts you back into a vibrational frequency alignment with your blueprint.
Hmm.
So when you're talking about the law of attraction, this is one, and I don't, my jury is not about the law of attraction. We're sitting in a chair and getting a Ferrari. My jury about the law of attraction is to provide us with the capacity to be the soul that we truly came here to be and to
Mhm.
accomplish what we're here to accomplish and to be a part of an integrated whole with all the other humans in our lives. And so that's really what the law of attraction is to me. And this is a tool to use it.
Someone said to me not long ago in one of these programs that the law of attraction, yeah, it's good, but they have it backwards. Now, it's funny because someone else said even further back regarding the law of attraction that they left something out and so forth. And that leaving of something out has to do with that blueprint, has to do with that life's purpose. How are you certain that what you want, that you want to attract to yourself is is in that blueprint? Is that part of your life's purpose? But the other part of it,
Exactly.
bringing it forward, is someone said the other day, and I have to modify this because another one of my guests, when I shared this, they said, I think it's both. The law of attraction says that you attract to you those things, whereas this other person said, actually, they have it backwards. You are drawn to the experiences and the things that you are wanting. And of course, then the third person says, I think it's both and. Okay, I won't argue either way. But it does seem to me that, matter of fact, the thought that went through my mind when you made the comment just a moment ago was, I was blessed with, or I chose golden parents, because they
Yay.
did not guide us in any direction in terms of our life, our mates, our careers, where we live, etc., etc. And they let us choose, and then they supported us just as they supported each other. I interviewed my parents 10 years ago on this program, and the comment that I share regularly on this program about that is that my mother said that I support him in all of his aspirations, his dreams, his desires, and so forth, and he supports me in mine, and I have his back, and I know he has mine. So that's why I say I was blessed coming into this world with golden parents who allowed us to do that. Now, with that being said, there are still issues in my life because I have to keep it personally. I can't touch upon my sisters or my brother or my parents, etc., or anybody else, because it's not
Yeah,
there. Those aren't my stories.
that's right.
This is my story. I still deal with some of these things, and I don't look at anything that I've done. Matter of fact, I rarely comment on any Facebook posting. But this one gal, she posted, and she was just the marriage was a disaster, and this and that and the other. And I posted basically, I said, look, you didn't make any mistakes. You're perfect. What you did was you had life experiences and life learning lessons. And if you learn from what the choices that you made up to this point, then you will be able to make new, fantastic choices that will change your life and give you what it is that you really want. And that's also the title of my book, Choices, 5 Steps for Life. So let's talk about getting free. Is it still true that you look at fear, not free, fear, uh, false expectations appearing real? I
Yeah,
loved what,
absolutely.
and I love what John Denver says in his song Poems, Prayers, and Promises. Changes somehow frighten me. There's fear, but
Yeah.
still
So
I
here's
have
the
to
thing.
smile. It
I
turns
think the
me on
thing,
to think of growing old. And I'm sorry. Go
yeah.
ahead.
No, I'm going to give you an example of false evidence appearing real. So I had a student who was training to do this, and when you get a closing, it means that you shouldn't do the thing tightness, right? And you got to look at your thinking about what the closing is. This takes training. Your mind is a crazy place to be. But this woman had gotten behind in her property taxes, 3 years behind. And because she had gotten cancer and she had been through a very difficult time, and the letters started coming in and they were going to take her home. But every time she went to pay the taxes, which would have wiped out her entire, what was all that was left of her savings, every time she went to pay her taxes, she was closed, which means don't do it. She's literally writing the check. And she would get on the coaching call and say, Zen, I'm closed at paying my taxes, but they are coming to take my house. Now, after 26 years of doing this and 40,000 students, I know that this always works. It really does. I said, don't pay them. We got to wait and see what's going to happen. About 3 weeks later, with all the tension, all the false evidence appearing real, that this was going to be a dire thing, she's standing in line at the bank. And this is what I mean about divine information. She's standing in line at the bank, and a person walks up to her, one of the loan guys, and said, have you thought about, do you own your home? Have you thought about refinancing? She said, no. He said, let's see what we can do. They sit down, go through the application. They get to the part about taxes. He goes, oh, I see you have 3 years of back taxes. And she's totally embarrassed. And she goes, yes, I do, thinking that it's over. And he said, you want me to roll them into the loan? They rolled the taxes into the loan. She got $700 because of the new interest rate off of her mortgage. She kept her savings and came out ahead. Now, she would have wiped out her savings. Do you see what I'm saying? Over and over. That was on her blueprint. What I have found is that our life's blueprint is so filled with miracles and synchronicities that when we are in a state of opening and we are in what I call flow, which is what happens when you get all the closing thoughts out of the way, all the beliefs, all the things that are off your blueprint, out of your thinking, and you're in your blueprint, there is a energy that flows through your beingness into the world that keeps you in the right place at the right time with all the resources that you need to accomplish what you're here to accomplish.
Wow.
So that's exactly what we're talking about.
Wow. That's awesome. We're talking with Zen Cryar DeBrucke, and we're talking about BeFearFreeNow.com. Please go to that website as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. Fear is a real thing in that it can really debilitate us. We're talking with Zen Cryar DeBrucke, and I want to share with you very briefly, because I would love your take on this. By the way, when you describe this closedness, the physical responses,
Mhm.
makes me think of a modality that I learned some 40 years ago from a woman in Phoenix, Arizona. Her name was Carol Kettler. And she taught me this little technique, you know, called muscle testing. It's also known as kinesiology. When you describe this technique that you have developed, this internal guidance system, and you start feeling that close, that's what it reminds me of. Is it close? Is it anywhere near, or are they two totally separate and different things?
There is a similarity between the two, okay, because you're stopping and you're testing a particular thing. The difference is that your mind is stopping and testing something.
Okay.
So, and your mind doesn't have the answers. So let's say you're muscle testing, a supplement and it's calcium, and you go to muscle test it and it says you don't you it says no, basically. No, it's not good for you.
Mhm.
You're weak. So then you move on and you're like, "Oh, I don't need calcium." But what if it was just that brand of calcium is not the right type of calcium for you? Right? And that now that opportunity for something that your body needed is completely over because your mind was like makes up a story about it. The difference with this is every thought that's moving through your mind will give you a sensation of open, closed, or neutral. So as you move away from the calcium, right, you'll feel a closing at leaving the calcium. You'll be, as you're thinking, oh, I don't need calcium, you'll close. You're like, I do. So you'll pick up another bottle and you'll and look at it, and that bottle will be the one that opens you because you know how many different types of calcium there are in the world,
Yep.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And so yeah. And so there's so much that our mind doesn't know. Last time I was here, I asked you a question. I asked you what color was a yield sign.
Well, it's a yield sign is black and yellow.
So we went through this, and last time I shared this with you, a yield sign is red and white. It was changed in 1974. Now, this is really important, Richard. I know it's really
Mhm.
hard. It was changed in 1974, and all of them were changed by 1978 in the United States. And there's lots of people out there going, "You're crazy, Zen. I know there are yellow and black yield signs." Convinced of it. But here's the thing. New information doesn't update your brain. That's why you don't remember that it was red and white from the last time I told you. But if I gave you a crayon on a white piece of paper and I had you color it, you'll never forget that it's red and white ever again because the body updates the mind. So as you're moving through your day and you're getting the expansion and contraction, when the new thought comes through and it opens you, you've now just updated your mind.
Hmm.
So what happens is your life begins to transform powerfully as you clear out the closing thoughts and you go into the opening thoughts. The neural pathways change. All of the old limitations that you had are now gone. And the new opening that leads you into your alignment with your blueprint all begins to take root. And so new opportunities, new things begin to happen. So stopping and doing muscle testing, it's very similar, yes, but this is so much more profoundly powerful. Richard, we were born with a system that updates the neural pathways of our mind. The day we were born, we had it. It's been decoded, and now we can use it every single day in the middle of an argument with our spouse, as we're trying to figure out if we should start that new business, as we're collapsing inside in a business meeting because we think somebody's taking our idea and our power. All along the way, as somebody's trying to convince us about a political movement moving in a direction that's going to destroy our lives, all along the way, every day, I'm getting chills. We have the opportunity to be in a fresh, present moment with wisdom and discernment about what is exactly right for us in a completely fear-free way, and to be able to take a stand on it. Because every time you try to move your thinking back into the position that's not true for you, you close. You
Yeah.
can feel that it's not right.
You know, and the key phrase, or the key word in what you said there at the end is, and I point the finger at me when I use the word, okay, just for clarification, the word you, or in my case, the word me.
What's right
It
for you.
doesn't apply to anyone else.
No, it's so personal.
Yeah.
It's so
Now,
beautiful.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. So one of the things I love is like you can go to a workshop and and you'll discover I have abandonment issues. Where? When? With whom? What's your personal abandonment? They just leave you with this
yeah,
label.
yeah,
But now you can be like, I have abandonment issues when my husband doesn't call me back after I've called him 3 times and I collapse and feel crushed. And then by the time he calls me, I'm so mad because he disappointed me and not getting back to me. And his phone was dead and he couldn't call me back. But you went into a spiral. That's when your abandonment issue shows up, right? You can now actually fix it because he didn't call you back and you're closed. That guy he doesn't care about me at all. I'm closed. It's not true. He does care about me. Something's going on. Open. By the time he calls you, he's like, sweetheart, what happened? You haven't called me. My phone was dead, honey, and I didn't have a charger. Got it. You don't go there anymore. And
yeah.
in those moments, you just reprogrammed yourself away from abandonment.
Two things. Number one, the reason I laughed at that is because I took a flight to Phoenix for my sister's memorial a couple of years ago. I had my laptop, I had my phone, I thought everything was fully charged. The guy that was supposed to pick me up couldn't find me. I was right there at the trolley station and we had agreed upon the same, the location and everything. I mean, I was born and raised in Phoenix. I know the streets. All right. Couldn't find him. So I ended up having to walk 4 or 5 miles
Oh my
after a
gosh.
long a short plane flight from California to Phoenix
Tell me it
to
wasn't
my
hot.
parents' house. To my parents' house. And I tried calling, but I realized my phone was dead. No, and I thought, and if for some reason I thought, well, if I'll turn my laptop on and I'll do that. And I'm going, how am I going to get power from the laptop to the phone? They don't work that way. I ended up walking the whole way. Now, I finally made it to my parents' house. They were gone because they were out looking for me. Now,
Yep.
later, I listened to all of the voicemails from my mother and so forth. But there I was sitting on the chair outside the front door waiting for them. They show up and I explained I had no power in the phone and everything was good. But my mother made the most amazing statement. She said, Richard, I knew you were fine, just because you're very resilient. You manage to turn things into something else, when there's situations. The other thing was a financial deal. Now, this happened, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I got this impression. Now, this is going to my intuition more than the body feeling.
Yep. They're
You
different.
need to do this. You need to do this. And I'm going, yeah, but that's not in my plan. All right. You need to do this. And it would not go away. All right. I've had this happen a couple of times in my life. Okay. All right. So I moved forward with the suggestion and I did it. And a few days later, if I hadn't done that, hadn't followed that prompting, things would have been a whole lot worse financially. Um,
I had the same thing.
yeah,
I had an opening. I went to put money into my 401k in 2008 and I closed. And I got an intuitive hit to pull everything out of my 401k, leave it in the account, but don't have it in the stocks. And I waited because you don't do that. You don't pull your money out of your 401k. No, that's not what you're supposed to do, right?
yeah.
You don't pull it out of the actual investment vehicle. I finally did, and about a week and a half later, the crash happened, and I still kept all my money. And when I went in to pull it out, I was completely open. It's completely open that it was the right thing to do, but it did not make sense. And I was
Wow.
able over and over and over again, stories like this where it doesn't even make any sense. And yet it always works out. Like I had another woman who had a plane ticket issue. She had a conference she was going to. She spent, up a couple hours finding the best, plane flight to go down there, the most affordable, exactly what she needed. She went to purchase it. She didn't get an email. It was late. She was tired. She went to bed. She got up the next morning to buy the ticket and she was closed. Now she's had training, so
Hmm.
she didn't do it. So she gets on week after week. She's come on going, I don't have a plane ticket and I am closed at buying a plane ticket. What's going to happen? We don't know. So then it turns out her husband comes in about a week and a half before the event. She still didn't buy a ticket because she was closed. And he goes, what is this charge on our card? She had bought the ticket and it had not gotten a confirmation email. Now, if she had bought the ticket again, she would have had two flights. You don't get those back.
Mm-mm.
Over and over and over again, this happens. Over and over. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Business deals, go through, you open when you can tell that the deal's not going to go through. So you're not upset about it. They call you and they're like, we're going to go in a different direction. You're like, okay, I knew,
Yeah.
it, you can feel it. So the level of stress in life is completely done. And you always know that you're okay. One of the thoughts that always opens you, there's two of them. I don't know how, but this is going to end up being the best thing that could have happened to me. If you're in any situation where something unexpected happens, use that phrase and it will open you because it's always true. And the other one is, I always have what I need before I need it. These are
Wow.
two archetypical phrases that are true for our human existence in a divine manner. And they are always opening and they are always true.
Wow.
And in that, you automatically set the ball rolling to allow the world around you to take care of you in those two ways that you always have what you need before you need it, and that you don't know how, but the thing's going to end up being the best thing that could have happened for you.
We're talking with Zen Cryar DeBrucke, and we are talking about being fear-free, being a fear-free human. Go to the website, befearfreenow.com, and this is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and I'll make it through the end of this interview with Zen Cryar DeBrucke. I have to ask you this. Actually, I need this damn training, but at the same time, I'm thinking, I already have it. And here's the reason I say this. Almost a year ago, when my wife had lost her job, and then our state disability benefits ran out at the end of December of 2023, and I made a decision on a financial level that backfired in April of 24 to where we were almost evicted. And
Oh,
I
love.
did the only thing I could think of to do, and that was I asked for help, and it came. And so, and by the way, all of this was happening while the radio station that I'm working for at that time was sold, and everybody was saying, "Oh, they're going to change the format, da da da." And I'm going, "You don't know that, and I don't know that. What I do know is that I have a job until I don't. Okay." And I'm going to continue doing
Hmm.
that job until I don't. And so we go through, and my wife, she loses the disability in December. January, she starts looking for a part-time job, gets one, has it for maybe maybe 2 months, maybe, and then they let her go. She was on what they called what is that, like probation, that kind of thing when you first take a job.
Yes.
And they said this is not a good fit for us, and that's okay, fine. And then, of course, I had also made the decision, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and pay the little stuff, and then I'll explain to the landlord, and that didn't work. And we came that close. So it's now a year later, and I have made different decisions. I have decided, no, they get it first. All right. Rent is number one. We'll deal with the other stuff. Okay. And I'm also now doing sales for the station on top of all of the other stuff that I do. So when I start thinking and I start projecting my mind forward into the future, going, oh man, I don't know if it's gonna be tight because I don't get my Social Security until this month. In other words, I start running the mind. Do you know what
Yeah.
follows that for me? What follows that for me is almost exactly what you just said, that one statement. I am, I don't know where it's coming from. All I know is I am very optimistic about all of this, about everything that's happening. Um,
Yes.
I am part of a group that does voice work. I participated in contributing my voice to a project. I'm going to have the gentleman on this program. It's called the Audio Quran. They turned the Quran into an audio book. And I'm not reading the Quran, it's a dramatization. I thought, how cool is that? I've always wanted to know more. And anyway, all of these different things. So it's like the mind kicks in, starts to play its game. And as soon as
Hmm.
I have
Exactly.
exhausted the mind, somewhere from way in the back somewhere, maybe it's the still small voice, divine intervention. I don't know. All I know is I get that, this could be the best thing that could ever happen to us.
Yes.
You know?
And you know what's interesting? I'm open that we're going to be making it through this experience that we're in on the earth at this time, which is difficult. I'm very open about the
Yeah, me
fact,
too.
literally, which means it's true.
Yeah.
This tool, like my goal is to have within 1,000 years, which I know is a long timeline. My vision will last for that, will outlive me. But I believe we can eliminate fear in the human species completely with this tool.
I
Because
would
as you
agree.
go through and you clear out each and every, that's why I've spent so much time figuring out what all of the fear is actually it actually is, the basis, the bottom line of it, and the processes out of it, so that we can get it out between our relationships with significant others, our children, our community, our politics, our global, our interglobal, national, international levels. We can get to a place where we've cleared out all of the closings, the fears of other people, the fears of being taken advantage of, all of these various things. As we go from a closing into an opening, they get cleared up and we come back into this beautiful symbiology that all of Earth is already in. Nature's already all working together, and it's us humans that have disconnected. Why?
Mm,
Because
mm,
of our
mm,
mind. The
mhm.
mind is what actually fractionalized, keeps us in um, disparate and
Yeah.
apart from each other. And as we clean up the closings of our mind and all the fear we have, we come into alignment with each other. And in that, we come back into a symbiotic relationship with everyone else. And I have this vision of in 1,000 years, you know how they say lead is what destroyed Rome? Well, fear is what is destroying us. And I have a vision of it in 1,000 years, a teacher teaching about this time period saying, and this is what fear was doing. Fear
Yeah.
was causing them to go to war. Fear was causing them to not take care of each other. Fear was causing them to have more than they needed and others having not what they needed enough. And a little girl looking up and saying, what does fear feel like? And the teacher looks down and says, I don't know. We've never felt it.
Wow. There's an architect, a visionary by the name of Jacques Fresco. He created this wonderful um, society called the Venus Project. And I interviewed him when he was in his 90s. He's since passed on. And he would describe this vision. He would have all of these drawings, the architectural drawings and so forth, and the philosophy. It was based on three particular pillars. And one of them got me to thinking the way he has it set up, there's more than enough for everybody. You don't need money anymore because there's more, everybody's taken care of. You know, it's because we have maybe gotten beyond that fear factor, if you will. And the example that I would use with people, I say, look, all right, let's just say we're still using these little USB drives, these little short little sticks, right? For storage. All right, just for example. And you go into the place where they have them. Maybe it's a computer store. We'll stick with that. And there's this giant bin filled with them, and these things hold terabytes or gagillions of data space. All right. When you put it in your pocket and you walk out the door, And a guy comes up and says, I want it at gunpoint. He points a gun and says, I want it. Well, he's not going to steal it from me. Let me explain. I reach in my pocket and I hand it to him freely and willingly, but also saying, by the way, there are more back at that store over here at the computer store if you want more of them. So
Mhm.
he can't steal it from me because I'm giving it to him. And I'm not in fear of him shooting me. If he does, what am I going to do? Go to the hospital, hopefully, or I'm going to die and I'll move on to the next level, whatever. And that's kind of where I'm coming from. And I'm curious, is in any of this training, the process of changing the individual's slash my perspective on things. We talked about change earlier.
Abs- Yeah.
Everything is temporary.
Yeah, absolutely. It completely changes your perspective on everything. So the way I like to look at it is there's physical fear, like tiger fear. You know, you're walking in the jungle at night and you hear
Hmm.
a big, loud growl.
Hmm.
And then there's mental fear. And mental fear is what we're all mostly every single day dealing with. Why didn't they call me back? Are they mad at me? You know, am I going to have enough? What is that pain in my side? Is that cancer? You know, all these little things, niggly things that are attacking us all from our mind. Physical fear is very rare nowadays, you know, and the difference between physical fear is when you get in a car accident, semi comes running around the corner and you move out of the way and come back and you're like, and then you recover. But mental fear, it eats at you. It eats at you at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's with you.
Hmm. Hmm.
You could be doing great. An email comes in from your boss and it's got a subject line that looks horrible. And you're like, what did I do? What's going on? You know, I'm in trouble, you know, that kind of stuff. So once you start figuring out finding the opening, number one, you stay relaxed, but there are high performance fear people like police officers, firefighters, EMT, emergency room doctors, our military. It's training is all it is. Once they've been trained, my husband was in law enforcement and has been shot at, and he's talked about when you're being shot at, there's because of training, there is a movement that you go into. It's almost like time slows down and you go into this way of being. And same with an emergency room. They'll be in a situation where somebody will come in and they're just bleeding out, and everybody goes into this movement of it, knowing exactly what to do and when to do it. And you don't have any response because you just are trained to know what to do in the situation. It's the same thing with learning how to become fear free. You use the internal guidance system. The fear comes in, you can feel it, you find the thought, you transmute it. The opening leads you back into a nervous system that's centered and calm again. And then you are trained on how to do that over and over again. And so you do not have the same response. And the creativity that comes in because you're not being hijacked by your amygdala and pulling you out of your center and responding with a knee-jerk reaction, the creativity and the power that you have as a business leader, as a mom, as a spouse, when there's something like, honey, I have cancer, dealing with that and being able to handle it and be able to be supportive, all of that, right, is becomes a completely new experience. And then there's these really beautiful life lesson spiritual awarenesses that are very universal, that be like I said earlier, I always have what I need before I need it, no matter what. You do that experience, because start becoming known, you start knowing these archetypical powerful ways that this world works, and you can count on it. And so, like, for instance, the world, I teach people that the world we have around us is a mirror and it's a reflection of our own soul. So, you know how you're walking down the street in a big city and there's these people going by and they're like ghosts. But then one person will walk up and you recognize them and you look at each other in the eye and there's something there. I consider that a soul family moment. And even after
Hmm.
they pass, it may be a few minutes. I still remember a woman in New York this happened, and I remember crossing the street and passing her. I don't know who she is, but there was a moment, and I can still remember her years later. Our lives are like that. The only thing that shows up in your mirror is the thing that you need to reflect upon. And if you're triggered by anything, it means that you are being reflected back something you're doing to yourself, someone else, or something you want for yourself that you won't let yourself have. Trigger, no
Mm.
matter what. And those are positive triggers of finding somebody beautiful or finding somebody to be articulate or an incredible mom. You have that in you and you're being triggered by the yearning for it because it is you and it's being called forward. Or triggering of this person's really irritating you. There's some way that you are in the one of those three things. You're doing it to yourself, someone else, or it's something that you want for yourself. And so once you know how to process it in combination with the opening and closing, you will open when you hit that truth. And the interesting thing is I call it polishing your mirror. Once you know what to do with
Mm.
that, it disappears. The thing that annoyed you disappears. The thing that's causing you the trigger, the challenge, the pain disappears. And the beautiful triggers, they get embodied and become part of you. And so, like you were saying, does this change the way you view the world? It changes the way you do life
Mm-hmm.
because there's a healthy way. It's almost like a how-to manual. There's a healthy way, and no matter what comes to you in your experience, you know exactly what to do with it. And you can feel with the opening that you hit upon what's exactly going to work because you have a deep sense of discernment and knowing that you are perfectly aligned with that solution happening in just the right way.
Just this conversation, I feel lighter. I haven't done anything per se, but just in our conversation here, this is fascinating. Zen Cryar DeBrucke is my guest. We're talking about living a life fear free. You got it? Free of fear. And we're going to continue talking about that here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and we're here with Zen Cryar DeBrucke, and we're talking about living a life free of fear. There's a word that you use. I'm going to use it here in a moment, but it's tied into another one. And I've asked this question of a lot of folks over the last, well, 6 months or so that it came into mind. We are looking to live a life filled with joy and happiness, peace. You have a word here. I love the word. I'll have to look up the exact definition, but I know the context. Sanguine. Lovely word. I love it. Um, the founding fathers of the United States of America, in their Constitution, in the preamble, it talks about these inalienable rights of life and liberty and happiness. Oh, I'm sorry. No, 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 no. The pursuit of happiness. I did that on purpose. Do you think they knew something intuitively to have incorporated that into that document? Because why? Why would you care if, the people had happiness? And of course, I don't see anywhere, for example, as a Roman Catholic being raised, I don't recall ever over reading the Bible a number of times that I have. I've never seen the word happiness anywhere. Anywhere. Okay.
I think one of the things that I love about the United States is having knowing what I know about the internal guidance system in this opening. Our documents that founded this company or this country are all opening. When you read them, you get inspired, and inspiration is a
Hmm.
deep opening. This operates kind of like a compass. When you're really closed, it feels like terror. When you're really open, it feels like the most embodied, inspired, desirous, moment in your life. And the interesting thing is, and I know you did it on purpose, but I think they're even more than inspired in knowing something because happiness doesn't last and
Hmm.
it doesn't fulfill us and it isn't something that you really want. I know that sounds, you want to be happy on your day to day.
Sure.
I teach my son, you want to be really not wanting to leave where you're at, but super excited to be where you're going next.
Hmm.
That's the perfect tension, right? We all matter. It's our contribution and making a difference in the world that is what's important. So it's the pursuit itself that makes us happy, right? Now we can get into a place where it's like you never get there. And so you're always yearning. And that's a
Hmm.
completely different thing because you're actually not on your purpose. Because if you're on your purpose, I like to say we have 100,000 life purposes, not just one.
Hmm.
From smiling at the Starbucks counter person when you see that they're upset or commenting on how beautiful their eyes are, to giving your buddy this book, to watching your grandbaby so that your daughter can get ahead in school while she, at night or whatever it is. We've got hundreds of thousands of things we participate in together. And it's whenever we're in the pursuit of doing the thing that's in alignment with what we're here to do and contributing, that's where our joy and our happiness. The second you take that away from somebody is when we're destroyed. And so, and that's why socialism and communism don't really work, because it takes away the pursuit of the desires and the dreams. And when you hand it to somebody, they become numb.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so I think, yeah, and the happiness, the pursuit of it, it's actually what it creates all the ingenuity inside of our country. It's what has made the United States so brilliant and so beautiful, is because in the pursuit of happiness, we've created all kinds of things that are
Hmm.
unique to us that will make us more happy. And in that, we were like, well, this is making me happy. Somebody
Yeah.
will buy it to make them happy again too, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
in that, and it's like that beautiful thing. I mean, look at Las Vegas. I want to just say, one of the things I'm, no matter what you say about Las Vegas, it is a place where you walk through it and you could see somebody came in with a dream. I want to build a giant tiger out of M&Ms. And somebody goes, I'll pay for that.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, I'll
Some,
buy
hey,
that for you. And the person, you go through and you walk through, next time you go to Vegas, walk through and be like, look at all the people who had some crazy, amazing, incredible idea that what they wanted to do so badly, and somebody threw the money at them and then put it on show. It's brilliant. I want to build a
mm,
roller coaster on top of a skyscraper. Oh, I'll pay for that.
yeah. Oh, yeah. And I will add something to that. And again, I want to stay away from politics per se, but then you wonder why so many people around the world will do whatever it takes to get here.
Yeah.
I just it's like there was this episode in Star Trek Next Generation where this creature locked itself onto the external hull of the Enterprise and was sapping its power. And they finally figured out that it was like a calf nursing
Baby.
at its
Yeah,
mother,
baby.
a baby
I remember
calf.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like a baby. Yeah.
Yeah. So they finally
Deanna
figured out,
Troy was like, it's a baby. Yeah.
yeah. So they figured out, okay, what if we, metaphorically speaking, soured the milk? In other words, they changed the frequency of the power that it was drawing and it let go. It didn't hurt it, okay? And it let go. And I often think, well, you have all of these people that are here and you don't want them here for, the various reasons. Why do you think they're coming? So why don't you sour the milk? Okay? Because sending them away is not going to stop them from coming. They want to be here. So either sour the milk or find a way for them to be here so that it's palatable for you. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that.
Uh,
Um,
I would say, well, may I? I would say that we have certain people that are here for nefarious reasons, and that needs to be addressed.
sure.
But we also have a lot of people, like you're saying, who are here and they really want they don't want to sit around and they do not want to be given free stuff.
Hmm.
I mean, it's nice. They would prefer to be entrenched and contributing. And, which is hard because of the way our manufacturing and the way that things are, even our agriculture has been shipped to Mexico now, but a lot of it. But so we don't have the jobs. But if we had the jobs, being able to look at the workforce and bring them in and figure out what we need would be a much more powerful way to be able to do it if we had the options. And I think we will again. We are beginning to hopefully retool.
Hmm.
But souring the milk or offering them the American dream for real.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
have to operate to our people too.
Sure. Absolutely. The
That's
thing
where
that,
it's becoming, that's the rub. It's never been a rub before
yeah.
until we stopped producing for our own and
Yeah.
then we started taking care of others. That's where it became the issue
Yeah.
on both
Yeah.
sides, all around.
All around. Absolutely. And we're not the only country that's dealing with this either. There are other
No.
countries that are dealing with the same issues, and so forth. But what I'm curious about, because this is one of those things that really came to my mind in June of 2015. I still remember the exact date, June 15th. Now, I went through many personal growth and development programs in the 80s and 90s. And I observed that we went from victimhood and then we moved into codependency and then we moved into interdependency. I thought, "Oh, wonderful. We're evolving, we're moving forward." And then, and again, I'm not saying this was the moment that it happened, but it was the moment that it became national and international. Victimhood returned, in a huge way. And I said, no, wait a minute. I already played this game and I won. And when I say I won, I don't play
Mhm.
it anymore.
Yeah.
And yet here we are once again blaming everybody else. And this is one of the aspects I'd like to talk to you about in terms of this internal guidance system, that victimhood, it's someone else's fault that I am where I'm at, isn't going to fly.
And you can't. I mean, that's the thing with the internal guidance system. The closing, whenever you feel the closing, which let's list it. It's anxiety,
Yep.
uncomfortable, which is uncomfortable, suffering,
Hmm.
worry, fear, overwhelm, impatience, frustration, doubt, mistrust,
Yeah.
right? Just to name a few. Defensiveness. All of these are victim responses, right? And they hurt and they're uncomfortable and they're miserable. Anxiety is a very uncomfortable experience, but
Yes.
it's guidance that what you are thinking is not true or not going to happen. So
Yeah.
when you're pointing and saying, I that person makes me feel bad, or that person, I don't trust that person, if you can't trust the person, it will open you. There is a discernment. There is a wisdom that's unshakable. It's like, nope, there's something wrong with that person.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
if you're feeling mistrust of a person, which is closing, it means that you have an old image of probably coming up from somebody else that you couldn't trust, that you're
Hmm.
being reminded of, and it's not true. And in that mistrust, because it's uncomfortable and it feels bad, people will begin to fight against that person and that it's wrong, what they're thinking is not true. They'll begin to fight against that person in a way that becomes the closing gets tighter and tighter and tighter, more and more deep,
Mm.
the more that you hold that thought. Like I
Mm.
said, it works like a compass. So you get a little like north, south, east, and west. When you're north, that's like the big, expansive, inspired, incredibly open, filled with love and inspiration. When you go to like east or west, it's neutral and it's just a nice centered feeling. Most people who've been trained to do this, they just live there. And then as you go through your life, you get a little opening, you get a closing. It's very mellow and you just follow it as guidance, like the hot cold game when you were a kid.
Mm.
And then due south is extreme terror. We are seeing people in extreme terror, okay, about what's happening in the world, and it's not true what they're thinking.
Yeah.
And until they get to that point where they're like, it's not true that I can't trust this person. If it was true that I couldn't trust this person, they would be completely open and unshakable, non-violent, non-hysterical, and have a way in which that provides a solution because the opening begets opening. Opening is always good for everyone. And they would be able to have a conversation about it that would enroll other people into the opening of the true mistrust. But that's not what's happening. They're disseminating fear in the closing, and that closing is making that irrational terrified because there's no solution in closing. There's no solution in a lie. There's no
Mm.
solution when you're not standing in truth. There is no solution. So the
Yeah.
deeper you go into the closing and the hysterics and the suffering, the less possible it is to find something that's actually going to work. So when you move up into the opening, then everybody's collaborating and the solutions present themselves in mass.
Yeah.
And that is the crux of where we are and where we need to go in the United States is really looking at the insidious things that have been put inside our heads that are not true. I mean, mis and disinformation is an important thing to tackle, but we cannot let our media or anyone outside of ourselves tackle it. We
Yeah.
have to tackle it ourselves with our own internal guidance system,
Hmm.
assessing each thing and finding the opening and the discernment and the wisdom within ourselves. And we have a tool that we were born with to do it. And once you have done that, you are unshakable. But no one can come through and determine what is disinformation for you or the society. The citizens of the society need to do it themselves, and they need to have the tool to do it.
Yeah. I've also heard it said too, and I don't know what the exact number is, but supposedly we have hundreds or thousands of thoughts a day. But there's an interesting aspect to that. Of those hundreds or thousands of thoughts we have every day, we can only deal with and have one thought at a time. Try to think of two different things at the same time, and you can't do it. The
I
mind
found
does.
that I'm going to disagree.
Okay,
I
go
hate.
ahead, please, please.
Yeah, because I think one of the biggest issues that we have is we actually can. So we'll be worried about our mom who needs to go, who's, you leave your mom's house and you notice that she said the same thing 6 times and she's living on her own and you need to have a conversation with your siblings because mom's not okay and how and they're not going to want to hear it and all of that. But at the same time, you still need to get your kid from school, get him to the dentist, make sure the car is going in for the shop, contact your spouse and let them know that this thing that you didn't get done, they need to pick up the ball for. And at the same time, you have this undercurrent. And this is where a lot of people, when they start training, they like, I'm closed all the time. I'm always closed. And that's because very often there's an undercurrent of fear about things that are happening that you can't deal with in the moment. And so one of the things I teach people is how to go through those layers to stop and be like, I'm closed, but I can't figure out why. I'm just taking my kid to school this morning. And it's because you're closed because you know you got to go grab your mom and take her to the doctor and get the final diagnosis because it's time. And that's what you're really thinking about on your way to school. And so there are these different layers of thoughts. And what happens is one of the things is when you start to use your IGS, you clearing them out and you become aligned. And that's where your
Okay.
thing of finding, dropping in to that still quiet space and checking in begins to be able to happen. Because as you deal with all the closing thoughts and they come into an alignment, you are then present and you're okay. So you can say, "Oh, I'm closed about this being a really bad conversation with my sibling about mom." And that means it's not going to be a bad conversation. I'm going to let that go and be present with my son today on the way to school.
Hmm.
And that's where we're
Interesting.
at and what we're
Yeah.
needing to do.
Yeah.
This does take training, and I just want to say at Be Fear Free Now, there is a free trial. I provide membership for coaching subscriptions. They're very affordable, 47 or 97. This is not an expensive thing to do. And you get coaching. There's 5 coaching calls a week. You get the program immediately to try it out. And you can try the first 4 days of the program. You'll immediately notice how your internal guidance system changes your life and begin clearing out fear in the first 4 days. And if you decide to keep going, it's only $47 a month for this training and to become completely fear free and to be able to do all the things that we talked about today, being able to know when to not jump when you're being told to wait by something bigger than yourself, knowing how to have these beautiful conversations, knowing how to find your openings in life and clear out these closings. I am on a mission for the entire world to be able to do this, and I want to make sure it's affordable and effective for everyone.
I think that's wonderful, and that is not a high price to pay when you consider. I'll even use myself as an example. Now, when I went into work 5 days a week, and I would stop into Starbucks 5 times a week, every morning, $5 a pop. That's 25 times 4 weeks. That's $100. Now
Yeah.
I only go in 3 days a week. All right, so that's 15, 30, 45, $60. So I saved myself $40. But that's, I can do without. I can make my own brew here at the house if I chose to do so, and so on and so forth. So it is something that is certainly affordable. We're talking with Zen Cryar DeBrucke, and we're talking about the website once again. Befearfreenow.com. Befearfreenow.com will be linked to that website so that folks can get more information as they listen to our conversation. I do have, first of all, I want to thank you again for being a part of what we're doing here. By the way, your explanation of one thought versus multiples and so forth, I get the difference as you've described it. I do understand that. I hope everybody else does too. And maybe hopefully they will go to befearfree.com, befearfreenow.com. I will figure it out eventually. I think I may even take advantage of that that opportunity that you've given to us as well. Um, I can remember one time, and I'm going to say I was open, and it was in 2006, March 1st. Interesting that it was March 1st, 2006, and my father, he departed on March 1st of 2023. Anyway, my wife and I had both lost our jobs. We're sitting in front of the TV. I had no fear whatsoever. Financially, we had a HELOC, on our house that back in Phoenix. And of course, we'd only been out of work for a day or so, so we had time. She comes over, sits down next to me, says, "I'm scared. I feel like we're on the edge of a precipice. We have no money coming in and da 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 da." And I had no fear at that moment. And of course, I tapped into the things that I had learned over the years from the books and the interviews and so forth, and responded to her by saying, "Well, what they say is that when you come to the edge of, I'll use her word, precipice or cliff, You do two things. And I processed that for a while too, thinking, those are backwards, but it sounds better the way they phrase it. And yet it's absolutely in the right the right order. You jump and you trust. You don't trust and then jump. You jump and trust that the
Yes.
universe is there, will take care of you. And it was. And in 2 months, we were on the road to Santa Barbara, sold a house, and away we went. But I'm going back to this aspect that I had no fear.
Hmm.
Now, I didn't know anything, but I just didn't feel as though this is the end. This is a
Because it
catastrophe.
wasn't. Because it
Yeah,
wasn't.
yeah,
It
exactly.
wasn't. Because it wasn't. In fact, you were going to be somewhere. I'm telling you what, I appreciate Arizona very much, everybody in Arizona, but Santa
Bye
Barbara's
bye.
a little better.
Exactly.
Damn it.
Well, I the only reason I will ever go back to Phoenix is to visit my family, my mother and my three sisters, and when my brother when he's there. He's spending half his life, half the year in Vietnam, which apparently he enjoys, and
I
that's
love
wonderful.
Vietnam. I
Yeah,
love Vietnam. It's a wonderful country. I spent 3 months there with my
yeah,
husband, and it's a
yeah.
fantastic place.
And tying into the whole migration thing, he has to leave Vietnam every 3 months. Now,
Yeah.
whether that's going to into another country or going to the border, literally, this is what she told me, and stepping across the border and then
Yep.
stepping back and getting his
Yeah.
visa stamped. That's all he has to do. And I just found that really funny. But it's like, wow, I want to bring that back every single time. And it's just like it's the same thing with the radio station when it was sold. I
Yes.
I had no fear because first of all, there was nothing that I could do about it. And then someone tried to turn me against my boss because I was the last one to know. I do most of, I say this humbly. I do most of the work for the station. I produce the programs, I take care of the logs, et cetera, et cetera. And yet I was the last person to be told, oh, by the way, the station's being sold. And when I was told this by this gentleman, I said, so what? I'm told when I need to know. What I have, and I still have no animosity towards my boss because it was none of my business until it was my business. So
Right.
I find that,
Exactly.
yeah. So fear is a real thing that we can overcome. Going to befearfreenow.com might help you out. Please do so. Zen, I want to, first of all, I've got to ask the name Zen. Was that your given name or chosen?
It was given to me later in life, but it was not given to me at birth. I did not choose it. I would not have chosen it.
Okay. Well, Zen, I thank you so much for joining us here on the program, sharing the work that you are doing through the internal guidance system or IGS. And we do encourage people to go to your website. And we could talk about this probably all day long, and I'd love to have you back to do just that on a regular basis.
I would love it anytime. There's so much more to cover. And I actually do love having the political conversation because I do think that we can bring in opening thoughts that will help people to be able to center themselves and have more power and more ability to be able to represent themselves no matter what side they're on.
Yeah.
And we can find solutions together. This is something that will work for that. And so I'd love to come back
Yeah.
and love to talk to you more.
Let's do it. My brother and I had a conversation, matter of fact, following my sister's memorial, and we were up till 1 a.m. And before, as the conversation started, what I realized was that he and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum, which actually brings us a lot closer than people might think, because it's a circle, not just a line. In any event, I made the commitment internally. I said, no matter where this conversation goes or how it ends, he is still my brother, and I will always love him. I'm not
Yes.
going to estrange him. And I made that commitment to myself when we started. And at the end of the conversation, we did agree on three issues that needed to be dealt with. Maybe not the solutions, but three issues that needed to be dealt with. That's something, you
Yo,
know.
I love it. I love it.
So
It's important.
yeah, absolutely. So absolutely, we may do that. We may have you back, and we'll share a little bit on that regard. Before I let you go, I do have three final questions to ask you. I know that we're tight on time here, but I'm going to ask those questions. But I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m. That's our special edition of Tell Me Your Story. And then Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. And we stream live at those times at richarddugan.com. Podcasts are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations. And we're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. I hope you'll subscribe, not for the purposes of boosting my numbers. Believe me, the numbers, though, yeah, they look great and they go up and so forth. I'm more interested in getting the information out there. And I do see the stats of people who are non-subscribers, and those are pretty good numbers, but I'm just glad that the information's getting out there. Click notification if you do subscribe so that when I do post a new conversation, you will be notified. We also ask that maybe you pick up a copy of my book, Choices, 5 Steps for Life. It's available on Amazon. The Audible is coming, and it's available in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle. And we also ask that you take some time to go within, as I mentioned earlier, to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still small voice. Also, if you'd like to be a part of the work that we are doing here on Tell Me Your Story, you'd like to be to help us out financially, we would gratefully appreciative. PayPal account. That's what I've got. It's for your security as well as ours. Just put in my email address, richard@richarddugan.com. With all of that being said, we now move to those three final questions for a very special guest. And that first question is, who is Zen Cryar DeBrucke?
Wow. I am a inspirational leader who is playful and fun and excited about creating a fear-free human experience for everyone on this planet.
What gets you up in the morning?
Creating fear-free humans, literally the transition to having somebody not have any fear in their lives and the watching people on a daily basis be filled with joy and contributing, that's what does it for me. And my son.
And finally, what was your best day?
Oh my gosh. There's been so many. I'm going to say the day my son was born. It was a hard day, but I love
Mm.
my little booger butt.
Well, again, Zen, thank you again. We will have you back again soon. And again, thank you so much for being a part of what we're doing here. And once again, I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Mike, thanks for letting me be a part of your life. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.